The alien princess faces the tribunal. A human chose her, and even the stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass walls of the Velari royal station, their light glittering like scattered diamonds across the black void. Princess Alara stood on the observation deck, her hands resting lightly on the railing. She could feel the hum of the station beneath her feet, a constant reminder of the Empire's power and legacy. But tonight, all of that mattered little. Tonight, she faced a choice that would shake the foundations of her life and the expectations of an entire species. The corridors behind her were quiet, the servants and guards aware that something extraordinary was unfolding. Whispers had already spread through the station. Alara, the youngest of the royal line, had chosen a human as her companion. A human, of all things, someone from a species Velari scholars dismissed as weak and short-lived, someone whose kind had no place in the intricate traditions of the Empire. Alara's mind wandered to Ethan. She could still see him, standing in the human settlement on the remote planet where she had first met him. He had been fearless when others hesitated, curious when others doubted, and clever when others failed. Most importantly, he had looked at her not as a princess, not as a symbol, but as a person. That simple honesty had shifted something in her, a feeling she could not ignore. Now he was being brought to the royal station, escorted under the watchful eyes of the Velari guards. The same species that had once considered humans insignificant were now holding their collective breath, waiting to see what the princess would do. Alara clenched her fingers around the railing, steadying herself. She knew what awaited her, a tribunal of the High Council, judges whose judgment had never failed, whose traditions had never wavered, and whose idea of what a princess should do left no room for deviation. The sound of boots echoed down the corridor. Alara turned to see the captain of the guard approaching. His face was impassive, but his eyes flicked toward her with a cautionary concern. "Your Highness," he said quietly, "the human has arrived. Shall I bring him to the observation deck, or—" "Bring him here," Alara replied, her voice firm, leaving no room for hesitation. "I want to see him before the tribunal begins." The captain inclined his head and left to carry out the order. Alara's chest tightened. The human would not understand the weight of what he had done, of what he was about to face. To the Velari, he was not a partner, not an equal. He was an anomaly, a curiosity, and for some, a threat to everything they believed. Minutes later, Ethan stepped onto the observation deck. He moved with the calm certainty that had drawn her to him, his human frame small but solid in the elegant alien space. His eyes, bright and unafraid, met hers, and for a moment the universe outside seemed to fade away. "Princess," he said, bowing slightly not from fear but from respect, "it is an honor to be here." Alara smiled softly. "It is good to see you," she replied, "but I need you to understand what is coming. The tribunal will not see you as I do. They will not see what you have done for my people. They will only see that you are human, and for the Velari that is enough reason to doubt you." Ethan nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I am ready," he said simply. "I have faced challenges before, Princess. I can face this too." She wanted to believe him, wanted to take comfort in the confidence that humans often carried, the same confidence that had so often saved lives in desperate situations. And yet, she could not shake the feeling of dread. The High Council was not known for leniency, and tradition had a power older than the stars themselves. When the doors to the Grand Tribunal chamber opened, Alara felt a wave of anticipation ripple through the assembled crowd. The chamber was immense, circular, and lined with glowing panels that displayed centuries of Velari history. Judges, their expressions unreadable and their bodies adorned in ceremonial robes, watched silently as she and Ethan entered. The air was heavy, electric with the weight of expectation. The head judge, an imposing figure with eyes like polished obsidian, stepped forward. "Princess Alara," his voice carried clearly through the chamber, resonant and commanding. "You have chosen a human over a Velari noble. You stand before this tribunal to explain your actions. Know that your decision challenges the very laws that bind this empire." Alara raised her chin, steadying her voice. "I do not deny my choice," she said. "I chose a human because he demonstrated courage, intelligence, and compassion. These qualities are not defined by species. They are defined by character, and Ethan has shown all three." A murmur ran through the chamber, a mixture of disbelief and shock. Some of the judges exchanged glances, their expressions betraying surprise. Others remained impassive, as if they had seen countless claims of defiance before and expected none to succeed. The head judge's eyes narrowed. You claim these qualities in a human. And yet, the laws of the Velari Empire dictate that alliances of this nature are forbidden. You risk dishonoring your lineage and disrupting the order we have maintained for centuries. Ethan stepped forward slightly, his posture confident. With all respect, honorable judges, he said, his voice steady and calm, I do not seek to disrupt your empire, I only seek to help it. My actions on the frontier, the defense of your colony when disaster struck, were not done for recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. I did what anyone with the knowledge and ability would do. That is all. A silence fell over the chamber. The judges were clearly unprepared for this response. Not defiance, not fear, not arrogance, but reasoned logic. Ethan's words carried a weight that tradition alone could not easily dismiss. The head judge inclined his head slightly. Yet your actions, human, have consequences beyond your understanding. You are in a place where one mistake could condemn you to exile or worse. Do you truly comprehend the gravity of your situation? I do, Ethan replied simply. I understand that your laws are strict. I understand that my presence challenges your expectations, and I accept the risks. I am here because I believe in what I did, and I will stand by it. Alara felt a surge of pride. The tribunal may not yet see it, but here was a human who refused to bow to fear, who faced impossible odds with calm and dignity. She had chosen wisely. The proceedings continued, with Velari nobles rising to speak against Ethan. They called him inexperienced, weak, unworthy of the princess's favor. They spoke of tradition, of duty, of centuries of law designed to keep outsiders in their place. Each argument was delivered with precision, backed by data and precedent, yet each one fell slightly short when measured against Ethan's quiet confidence and undeniable heroism. Alara interjected when necessary, her voice ringing clear across the chamber. She recounted the stories of his courage, the moments when his quick thinking had saved lives, the times when he had acted without hesitation to prevent disaster. She spoke not as a princess defending her heart, but as a witness to his deeds, presenting evidence no tribunal could easily ignore. Still, the judges whispered among themselves, their tones skeptical, their expressions unreadable. Alara could feel the tension in the chamber building. The verdict, she knew, would not come easily. The tribunal would debate, scrutinize, and test every claim she and Ethan made. Hours passed, each one stretching longer than the last. Ethan remained calm, answering questions with clarity, demonstrating his knowledge and quick thinking, his human perspective offering solutions that Velari logic had overlooked. Slowly, Alara noticed subtle shifts in the room, nods from some of the younger judges, raised eyebrows at the ingenuity of his answers, quiet admiration creeping into the expressions of those who had once dismissed him outright. By the time the session adjourned for a short break, a small but significant change had occurred. The chamber was no longer entirely hostile. The seeds of doubt about humanity's supposed weakness had been planted, and the thought that a human could, in fact, be a worthy companion for the princess was beginning to take root. Alara and Ethan stood together by one of the observation windows, looking out at the stars. Neither spoke at first, letting the silence between them hold the weight of what had just transpired. You were incredible, Alara finally said, her voice soft but steady. They may not admit it yet, but they are beginning to see what I saw from the very beginning. Ethan shrugged lightly, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. I just did what anyone would do, princess. You're the one who had the courage to choose differently. Alara's heart swelled with a mixture of relief and determination. The road ahead was far from easy. The tribunal would reconvene, and the challenges of tradition and prejudice would not vanish overnight. But for the first time, she felt a deep certainty. She had chosen wisely. She had placed her trust in someone who, despite being human, had shown a strength that rivaled even the greatest of the Velari. As the stars continued to shimmer beyond the glass, Alara realized that the coming days would test more than her heart. They would test the Empire's perception of humanity itself. And she was ready to face whatever came next, side by side with Ethan, the human who had already changed the course of her life. The tribunal reconvened the next morning, and the chamber felt colder somehow, the air heavier with expectation. Alara walked beside Ethan, feeling the weight of the eyes upon them. Some were curious, some skeptical, and some openly hostile. She could sense the unease among the Velari nobles. The memory of yesterday's proceedings had spread, and not all were happy with the idea that a human might earn even the slightest respect. The head judge, sitting high above the chamber floor, observed them silently, his face a mask of unreadable stone. He gestured for the proceedings to begin. "Princess Alara," he said, his voice echoing through the vast hall, "the tribunal will now consider testimony from additional witnesses and evidence regarding your choice. The matter concerns not only your personal judgment, but the laws and traditions that have guided the Velari for millennia." Alara nodded, her jaw firm. Beside her, Ethan moved with quiet confidence. He had spent the night reviewing the information he had gathered from the frontier, the Velari colonies that had been threatened, the defensive reports, even the minor structural failures in the station's outer defenses. Though he was human, he had a mind that could think in ways the Velari had not expected, and now it would be put to the test. The first witness stepped forward, a Velari noble named Vaylor, his robes adorned with the insignia of countless campaigns. "Princess," he began, his tone formal and measured, "this human has been presented as courageous. Yet what proof exists that he can contribute meaningfully to the Empire? Humans are frail, short-lived, and inexperienced. To place your trust in him is reckless." Ethan listened, his expression calm. When it was his turn, he spoke slowly, clearly, choosing his words with care. "I understand your concerns," he said, "but actions speak louder than words. I have risked my life to protect Velari colonies. I have repaired systems no one else could fix. I have worked under pressure where failure meant loss of life. And I will continue to act in the best interest of this empire, not because I seek praise, but because it is the right thing to do." A murmur passed through the chamber. The judges exchanged glances. Some frowned, but others leaned forward, intrigued. Humans, after all, were rarely seen on the stations in such capacities. Most Velari scholars dismissed them as incapable, yet here one stood, calmly presenting facts and reasoning that even a Velari would find impressive. Vaylor's frown deepened. "Your words are insufficient," he said sharply. "The High Council demands proof, not rhetoric. If you are truly worthy, then demonstrate it now. The frontier situation you describe, your solutions, are theoretical. Where is the evidence?" Ethan's gaze swept across the room, landing briefly on Alara. He then turned to the chamber's technology interface, his fingers moving in rapid, precise motions. Holographic projections flickered to life above the chamber floor, displaying schematics of the outer colonies, systems diagrams, and maintenance logs. "I have prepared this evidence," he said. "Here are the records of the frontier colony. These are the failures that occurred. And here," he continued, pointing to a series of structural simulations, "are the solutions I implemented under extreme pressure without anyone else's guidance. Every system stabilized, every life saved. You may verify these records yourselves. They are not my words, but the Empire's own logs." The judges studied the projections in silence. For hours, Ethan explained each step, each decision, and each improvisation he had made to prevent disaster. He showed how he adapted Velari technology using methods they had overlooked, how he predicted cascading failures before they happened, and how his choices had minimized loss of life. Alara felt a swell of pride as she watched him work. The chamber that had been hostile the day before now teetered between disbelief and admiration. Some of the younger judges whispered among themselves, astonished at the ingenuity of a species they had long dismissed. Even Vaylor's expression, hardened and unyielding, betrayed a flicker of doubt. Then a new voice rose, quieter but sharper, cutting through the tension. It came from a Velari scholar named Nyarla, known for her loyalty to tradition. "Princess Alara," she said, "we cannot ignore the facts, but consider this. Alliances with humans are unpredictable. Your choice could endanger diplomatic ties and provoke unrest within the Empire. What if this human's actions unintentionally lead to disaster? Who bears responsibility?" Alara straightened, her voice steady. "Responsibility has always rested on my shoulders as a princess. I have considered the risks, and I accept them. Ethan has proven himself not by chance, but by courage and intellect. We will act together, and the consequences will be faced as they come. I do not fear accountability when the choice is right." Ethan added, his tone calm yet firm, "I understand the risks, scholar, but I have never acted recklessly. Every decision I have made has been with careful thought and concern for life. I do not ask for trust because I am human. I ask for recognition of actions that saved your people. The tribunal fell into a long silence. The tension was palpable, but slowly, Alara noticed a subtle shift. The rigid walls of tradition, the unyielding assumptions about humanity, were cracking, even if only slightly. Some of the judges began to question their own bias, realizing that human ingenuity and courage could not be dismissed by prejudice alone. But just as hope began to stir, a subtle alarm sounded across the chamber. The outer security panels flickered, and red lights blinked across the station. A hush fell. Everyone turned toward the projection screens, where reports of unusual energy surges in the station's maintenance sectors appeared. Ethan's brow furrowed. "That's not a natural fluctuation," he said quietly, scanning the schematics. "Someone is interfering with the station's systems deliberately. These are not accidents, they are sabotage." The chamber erupted in murmurs. The judge's previous focus on the human was momentarily displaced by panic and confusion. Alara's heart raced. Sabotage in the royal station during a tribunal could be disastrous. Lives were at stake, and the station's delicate systems were vulnerable. Alara stepped forward, her voice clear. "Everyone remain calm. Ethan, can you determine the source?" Ethan moved to the interface, his fingers flying over the controls. "Yes," he said. "Someone has bypassed standard security protocols and is attempting to disable life support in one sector. If this continues, there could be casualties." A collective gasp swept through the chamber. The High Council judges were stunned. Their confidence in controlling the situation faltered. The Velari had technology advanced beyond most species, yet here was a human analyzing, predicting, and countering sabotage in real time. Ethan continued, his voice steady. "I can neutralize the interference, but I need access to the system controls fully. I will need the tribunal and the guards to trust me to act immediately." Vaylor's eyes narrowed. "And if your human methods fail, then I will accept responsibility," Ethan said simply. "But inaction guarantees disaster. Trust is required if lives are to be saved." Alara stepped forward, addressing the judges. "Do you see now why I chose him? Not because he is human, but because he is capable. He has the skills, the courage, and the clarity of mind to act where others might hesitate. I stand by my choice." There was silence, heavy with tension, as the judges considered her words. Slowly, the head judge inclined his head. "Very well," he said. "Proceed." Ethan moved swiftly, bypassing the sabotage with human ingenuity that relied on instinct, observation, and logic that Velari engineers had not considered. Panels glowed, machinery hummed, and the interference slowly disappeared under his guidance. Within moments, the life support system stabilized. The danger had been averted. The chamber erupted into cautious relief. Some judges looked at Ethan with grudging admiration, while others remained skeptical but silent. Alara allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had just proven in real time that courage and intelligence were not limited by species. Vaylor stepped forward reluctantly. "Princess Alara, human, your actions have saved the station. For now, the evidence of your worth cannot be ignored. But the tribunal is not yet concluded. Your choice will be scrutinized further, and tradition may yet demand consequences." Alara met his gaze evenly. "Let it be scrutinized. Let tradition weigh the facts. I do not fear it. Humanity will continue to act with honor, courage, and ingenuity, whether it is fully recognized or not." Ethan placed a reassuring hand lightly on her shoulder. "We face what comes together," he said quietly, "and we will face it without fear." As the session ended for the day, whispers traveled faster than the judges themselves could control. Across the empire, news of a human standing calmly before the High Council, saving the station from sabotage, began to spread. Some dismissed it as luck, some questioned it as exaggeration, and some could not deny the growing admiration for what a single human had accomplished. Alara and Ethan walked together toward the observation deck, the stars outside reflecting their determination. "We did well today," Alara said softly. Ethan shook his head, a faint smile playing on his lips. "We survived, yes, but the real challenge is yet to come. The tribunal may recognize the facts, but it will not easily change the hearts hardened by centuries of tradition." Alara nodded, her resolve unshakable. "Then we will show them more. We will prove that courage, loyalty, and intelligence are not limited by species. We will show them the human advantage." As they stood side by side, looking out at the distant stars, the weight of the Empire and the eyes of the Velari judges pressed upon them. But so too did a quiet, unshakable certainty. Humans had a place here, and Alara had made sure of it. And the galaxy, whether ready or not, was about to see a new kind of strength. The strength of humanity, fearless and undaunted. The quiet of the royal station was deceptive. Though the tribunal had adjourned for the evening, Alara could feel a tension lingering in the air, a subtle pulse that spoke of more than just legal scrutiny. The chamber had witnessed courage and ingenuity today, yet beyond the polished floors and glowing panels, shadowed figures moved with intent. Someone among the Velari nobility was not content to let a human demonstrate worth. They wanted to use the turmoil to their own advantage. Alara paced the observation deck, her thoughts restless. Ethan stood near the railing, gazing at the stars, his calm presence a counterpoint to her growing unease. "You're thinking too much," he said quietly, not turning to look at her. "Humans tend to overanalyze, but sometimes the answer is simpler than you imagine. Focus on what you can control." She smiled faintly, appreciating the irony. Humans were often underestimated because of their simplicity, yet that simplicity often became their greatest advantage. "I know, Ethan," she replied, "but something doesn't feel right. The sabotage today, it was too precise. Someone knew exactly what to target, exactly when to act, and it almost succeeded. Someone inside the Empire is working against us." Ethan turned to face her, his expression serious. "Then we find them. If they think a human and a princess are easy to intimidate, they are in for a surprise. Tell me everything you've noticed." Alara recounted the minor inconsistencies she had observed during the tribunal, the sudden hesitations of some nobles, the subtle glances exchanged when the sabotage alarm sounded, the strange silence in parts of the council that should have erupted in chaos. Ethan listened carefully, his mind already connecting dots faster than Alara could speak. "We need access to the station's surveillance records," he said finally. "Every corridor, every access point, every energy fluctuation. If someone is manipulating the systems, there will be a trail." Alara hesitated. "That will require permission from the High Council." "I'll make them grant it," Ethan said calmly. "They may not like it, but after today they have little choice. I'll make it about efficiency, about safety, not about proving anything to you. Facts are harder to argue with than prejudice." The next morning, Ethan's request was reluctantly approved. The tribunal watched with thinly veiled suspicion as he accessed the station's logs, moving quickly through layers of alien security protocols. Alara remained at his side, observing not only his skill, but the way the Velari judge's attitudes subtly shifted. Every solution he offered, every flaw he uncovered, made them realize just how resourceful a human could be. Hours passed. The logs revealed something troubling, energy surges and system overrides that were not accidental. They had been planned with precision. The sabotage that nearly caused a disaster yesterday was only the beginning. The traces led to a high-ranking noble named Thurin, a master of political intrigue, and a fierce traditionalist who saw the princess's choice as a threat to his own influence. Ethan's eyes narrowed as he studied the records. "This is deliberate," he said. "Thurin is trying to destabilize the station to make the tribunal look incompetent, to force the princess to be removed. If he succeeds, he could control the Empire from behind the scenes." Alara's heart sank, the betrayal cut deep. She had known that choosing a human would challenge tradition, but she had not anticipated such cunning. "We have to stop him," she said firmly. "Before anyone else is hurt." Ethan nodded. "We need a plan, and we need allies. The problem is, no one knows who to trust yet. Thurin's influence runs deep." Together, they began identifying members of the council and station staff who might be loyal to the king and open-minded enough to help. Slowly, they formed a small group, humans and Velari alike, who could operate discreetly. Ethan's calm, analytical mind became the key to coordinating their efforts. Each step had to be precise. One wrong move and Thurin's plan could succeed. Meanwhile, the tribunal resumed its sessions. Alara and Ethan attended, their presence a constant reminder that courage and intelligence could challenge tradition. Thurin, outwardly polite and composed, watched them with a calculating gaze. He spoke with careful authority, pushing for swift judgment against the princess and her human companion. Every word, every motion was designed to create fear and doubt, but Ethan anticipated it. Using subtle observations and questions, he exposed inconsistencies in Thurin's arguments, revealing weaknesses in his logic and demonstrating how human ingenuity could outthink Velari assumptions. Alara, empowered by his calm presence, responded to the council's questions with clarity and determination, turning their scrutiny into a demonstration of partnership rather than defiance. Then, the first major strike of Thurin's plan unfolded. A power surge disrupted the tribunal chamber systems, dimming lights and triggering emergency protocols. The council panicked briefly, but Ethan acted swiftly. Using a combination of Velari technology and human improvisation, he stabilized the chamber, isolating the malfunction and rerouting power through backup circuits. The judges watched in stunned silence. Even Thurin's carefully orchestrated disruption could not shake the human. Some whispers of doubt began to ripple through the chamber. If a human could control alien systems that Velari themselves struggled with, what did that mean for their assumptions about humanity? Alara realized something important in that moment. The threat was not just the tribunal or tradition. The true danger was hidden, Thurin's subtle manipulations, his ability to influence perception and provoke fear. The station's survival depended not only on courage, but on foresight and strategy. Ethan had both. Over the following days, Alara and Ethan worked in tandem to uncover the full extent of the conspiracy. Thurin had allies in key positions. Engineers who could be persuaded to misreport system failures, courtiers who spread fear and doubt among the judges, and messengers who delivered false information to the king. Each revelation increased the urgency of their task. Failure was no longer a theoretical possibility. It could mean chaos, injury, or even death for innocent people. Ethan devised a plan to expose Thurin's network systematically. They began intercepting communications, cross-checking reports, and setting subtle traps to catch those acting in his interest. It required patience, precision, and trust in a species that many Velari still considered inferior. But Alara had faith in him, and the results began to speak for themselves. The tipping point came when Ethan discovered a direct attempt to sabotage the main life support system, a plan that would have caused widespread panic and potentially lethal consequences. He moved quickly, coordinating with trusted engineers to neutralize the threat. Meanwhile, Alara confronted Thurin openly in the council chambers, her voice calm but firm. "You underestimate humans," she said, meeting his gaze. "You underestimate courage, intelligence, and integrity. Your plots rely on fear, but fear alone cannot dictate the future. The truth is stronger than your schemes." Thurin sneered, but his confidence wavered. He had expected hesitation, doubt, perhaps even panic, but not calm defiance from the princess, not precise counteraction from a human. Every move he had anticipated was now turning against him. The tribunal watched, fascinated despite themselves. The slow unraveling of Thurin's network became undeniable. Evidence, meticulously gathered by Ethan and his allies, revealed that the sabotage was not random, but a coordinated attempt to manipulate the tribunal's decisions. When confronted, some of Thurin's accomplices confessed, caught in their own web of deceit. For the first time, many in the council began to reconsider their assumptions about humans. Here was a species they had dismissed as weak, fragile, and unpredictable. And yet one human had navigated their complex technology, outsmarted their political maneuvers, and protected the lives of countless Velari citizens, all while maintaining composure under scrutiny. Alara's heart swelled with pride, but she also knew the battle was far from over. Thurin remained a threat, and the tribunal itself was still a powerful entity, capable of upholding tradition over reason if it so chose. Yet now there was evidence, proof of courage, skill, and human ingenuity, proof that could not be ignored. As the tribunal adjourned for the day, Alara and Ethan stood once more on the observation deck. Stars stretched endlessly across the void, and the station hummed with renewed energy and cautious hope. "Do you see it now?" Alara asked softly, her hand brushing against Ethan's. "They are beginning to realize that humans are more than they thought." Ethan's eyes reflected the starlight. "Yes, but we cannot stop here. Thurin's influence is still dangerous. The tribunal may recognize facts, but hearts and traditions change slowly. We will need to continue proving that courage, intelligence, and loyalty are not limited to one species." Alara nodded. "Then we keep moving forward together." For a moment, they stood in silence, feeling the weight of the Empire and the enormity of what lay ahead. But within that weight was also a quiet, unshakable certainty. Humans had the strength to face impossible odds, to rise above prejudice, and to challenge centuries of tradition. And the galaxy, whether ready or not, was about to witness a new kind of power, the power of a human mind, unbowed, unbroken, and unafraid. The station thrummed with quiet tension. Every corridor, every control panel, every observer felt like it held a secret, a possibility, a threat. Alara moved through the halls with purpose, Ethan close at her side. The events of the previous days had changed the atmosphere of the royal station. Whispers of admiration for the humans' actions mixed with murmurs of concern from those still loyal to tradition. But one figure remained calm, too calm, Thurin. He had not given up. In fact, his patience was more dangerous than haste. Alara knew that he would wait for the perfect moment, when hesitation or distraction could be exploited, when fear could be turned into control. And yet they had an advantage Thurin had never anticipated. Ethan's mind, capable of seeing patterns, anticipating moves, and acting decisively where the Velari relied on procedure and hierarchy. The tribunal would meet again in the morning. But tonight, Alara and Ethan would act first. They had identified the remaining parts of Thurin's sabotage network, hidden systems intended to create chaos, weaken trust in the princess, and force her removal. If left unchecked, these devices could create accidents, sabotage trials, and potentially cost lives. They needed to neutralize them before the tribunal convened again. Ethan studied the schematics one last time. There are 3 critical nodes controlling the station's systems that Thurin has compromised. If we disable them, we cut his ability to manipulate anything during the tribunal. But it's not simple. He anticipated interference and built redundancy. We have to be precise. Alara's hand brushed his arm. I trust you. Lead the way. They moved swiftly through the station, passing silent corridors and maintenance sectors bathed in the soft glow of alien technology. Engineers who had once been wary now worked quietly alongside them, providing access to systems while avoiding attention. Ethan's human ingenuity was evident as he bypassed complex Velari protocols with simple, elegant solutions. Where the Velari saw complication, he saw patterns. Where they expected failure, he anticipated solutions. The first node was deep within the central control hub. It was heavily guarded, but not against the kind of infiltration Ethan had in mind. Using timing and careful observation, he and Alara navigated the guards' patrols, slipping past cameras and pressure sensors with movements calculated to the second. When they reached the node, Ethan knelt before the console. "This is delicate," he whispered. "One wrong connection and it could trigger the failsafe. Watch closely, but don't touch anything unless I ask you to." Alara nodded, her pulse steady. Though she had faced danger before, the stakes felt higher now. Every decision could mean the difference between saving the station or falling into Thurin's trap. Ethan's fingers danced across the controls. He bypassed corrupted code, rerouted energy flows, and implemented countermeasures in real time. Sparks flickered briefly, panels glowed, and the node hummed under his direction. Within moments, it stabilized. The first threat had been neutralized. They moved to the second node, which controlled environmental systems throughout the station. This one was more insidious. Any misstep could trigger alarms, drawing attention immediately. Ethan paused at the entrance, assessing the security protocols. "We'll need a distraction," he said. Alara's mind raced. "I can create one," she said. She tapped into the station's communication systems, sending a false alert of minor maintenance issues in a distant sector. Guards and engineers diverted, leaving the path to the node clear. Ethan moved quickly, guided by instinct and knowledge. The corrupted code he faced here was more complex, designed to resist tampering. But humans had a way of thinking outside the box, and he applied solutions the Velari would never consider. Lines of code were rerouted, sabotage neutralized, and the node brought under control. Alara exhaled, feeling a surge of confidence. "Two down," she said quietly. "One more," Ethan replied, eyes fixed on the schematics. "And it's the trickiest. It's the core node that can override life support, energy distribution, and security systems simultaneously. If Thurin has a contingency, it's here." The final approach was tense. They moved through the station's central spine, corridors narrow and silent, Every footstep echoed like a drumbeat of fate. Alara kept a hand near her communicator, ready to signal any allies if needed. When they reached the core node, Ethan's brow furrowed. The sabotage was deeply embedded, almost inseparable from the station's own code. "This is complex," he murmured, "but we can do it. It will take precision and timing." Alara watched him work, fascinated by his method. Where Velari would have followed rigid protocols, Ethan improvised. He created temporary pathways, isolated corrupted sections, and applied solutions that were logical yet unconventional. The station seemed to respond to his hands, systems stabilizing as he guided the code through a labyrinth of alien technology. Then a warning beep sounded. Security forces had detected unusual activity in the core node. The room's doors began to lock automatically. Alara's heart raced. "They're coming," she whispered. Ethan didn't flinch. "Stay calm, we finish this, or everything we've done is for nothing." He worked faster, bypassing locks and overriding security protocols. Lights flickered, energy pulsed through the panels, and the node resisted, but Ethan persisted. His focus was absolute, his mind calculating each possibility. Seconds stretched into minutes, each decision critical. Finally, with a last keystroke, the node stabilized. The core systems were secured, the sabotage neutralized. Alara exhaled deeply, relief flooding her senses. They had done it. Thurin's plan had been dismantled. The sudden calm allowed them to hear footsteps approaching. Thurin himself emerged from the shadows, flanked by two loyal guards. His expression was controlled, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of anger. "Impressive," he said smoothly. "I underestimated you, but the tribunal is not yet finished. Your actions here do not erase tradition, Princess. And the human," he paused, his gaze sharpening, "cannot change centuries of law." Alara stepped forward, her voice steady. "Tradition is not stronger than truth. Courage, intelligence, and integrity are not limited by species. You have underestimated humanity, and you have underestimated me." Ethan stood beside her, calm and confident. "You planned for fear, distraction, and chaos. We planned for reality, facts, actions, and solutions. Tradition cannot resist logic when lives are at stake." Thurin's lips pressed into a thin line. He raised a hand as if to signal attack, but before he could act, a subtle series of signals passed through the station. Alara and Ethan's allies had secured reinforcements quietly. The guards loyal to the king surrounded Thurin, cutting off his path. For the first time, Thurin's confidence faltered. The meticulous plans, the hidden sabotage, the manipulation of perception, all unraveled by a human and the princess who believed in him. The tribunal convened the next morning with a different tone. Whispers of Ethan's actions circulated, and many of the judges now regarded him not as a curiosity, but as a capable, intelligent, and courageous ally of the Empire. Evidence of Thurin's sabotage and conspiracy was presented systematically, and witnesses corroborated the findings. Alara spoke with calm authority. "The threats to this station, the attempts to manipulate the tribunal, have been neutralized. The human beside me has demonstrated skill, courage, and integrity beyond what tradition predicted. We ask that the tribunal consider actions, not prejudice, in its judgment." Ethan added, "We acted to protect lives, to stabilize systems, and to ensure fairness. No species has monopoly over courage or intelligence. Actions define worth." The tribunal deliberated, and for the first time the weight of tradition was tempered by undeniable evidence and undeniable human ingenuity. Some judges still hesitated, clinging to old notions, but the tide had shifted. Thurin was stripped of his authority, his influence over the tribunal dissolved. He was confined pending further investigation, his network exposed and dismantled. The princess's choice, once considered reckless, now seemed prescient. Alara and Ethan stood together on the observation deck once more, the stars stretching infinitely before them. "We did it," Alara said quietly, her hand brushing Ethan's. "No," he replied, shaking his head with a small smile. "We showed them what humanity can do. The victory isn't ours alone. It's in proving that courage, intelligence, and integrity cannot be denied, even by tradition." Alara nodded. She knew there would still be challenges ahead. The Empire would not change overnight, and the tribunal's heart might remain wary. But the truth had been demonstrated. Humans could stand beside Velari, not as curiosities, but as equals in courage and intelligence. And in that realization, she felt hope, pride, and certainty. The galaxy was watching and humanity had made its mark. Ethan gazed out at the stars, calm, confident, unshaken. "This is only the beginning," he said. "Others will doubt, others will challenge, but we know the truth, and we will continue to act with courage." Alara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then we move forward, together." Above them, the stars shone bright, unblinking witnesses to a new kind of strength. A human had proven that ingenuity, courage, and determination could change the course of an empire. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The morning light reflected off the royal station's polished floors, shimmering across the tribunal chamber like scattered stars. The tension in the air was palpable. Every seat was filled, every gaze fixed on the princess and her human companion. The events of the past days had reshaped the expectations of all who were present. The sabotage had been exposed, Thurin's plot had been foiled, and yet the final judgment still rested with the High Council. One moment of doubt, one misstep, and centuries of tradition could reassert themselves. Alara stood at the center of the chamber, her posture firm, her eyes clear. Beside her, Ethan remained calm, his presence a steady anchor amidst the anxious energy that filled the room. The judges, some still skeptical, some quietly impressed, took their places. The head judge, the oldest and most respected of them all, raised a hand to call the session to order. "Princess Alara," he began, his voice resonant, "you have brought before this tribunal not only your choice but evidence that challenges the laws we hold sacred. You have acted with courage, and the human you have chosen has demonstrated skill and intelligence beyond what our assumptions predicted. Yet the matter is not yet resolved. This tribunal must decide whether your actions align with the welfare of the Empire and the values we uphold." Alara met his gaze steadily. "Honorable judges, I stand by my choice. Humanity is capable of courage, loyalty, and ingenuity. Ethan's actions have proven that these qualities transcend species. He has saved lives, stabilized systems that others could not, and helped prevent disaster. These are not accidents. These are demonstrations of ability and character. I ask you to judge based on facts, not tradition or prejudice." Ethan stepped forward, his calm voice filling the chamber. "I do not ask for favor or leniency. I only ask that my actions be weighed for their impact and effectiveness. I have acted not as a human seeking glory, but as someone who believes in protecting life and serving others. Every choice I made was deliberate, every action purposeful. I stand ready to accept the judgment that aligns with truth and justice." A silence settled over the chamber. The tribunal had been exposed to undeniable evidence. The sabotage, Thurin's conspiracy, and the humans' calm, effective handling of every crisis. The judges whispered among themselves, some nodding subtly, others staring with measured consideration. Tradition had been challenged, yes, but here was reason, courage, and proof. Thurin, present under guard, scowled, his confidence eroding. He had expected hesitation, fear, and doubt to dominate the tribunal's judgment. Instead, he saw the opposite, a human who could anticipate, calculate, and act decisively, and a princess who refused to bow to fear or prejudice. His influence had crumbled and his plots were laid bare. The head judge finally spoke again, his voice calm but authoritative. "The tribunal has considered all evidence, testimony, and actions presented. It is clear that the princess acted with foresight, courage, and wisdom. The human companion she has chosen has demonstrated qualities that align with the welfare of the Empire, and whose actions have directly prevented harm to Velari citizens and the station itself. Therefore, the tribunal finds that the choice of Princess Alara is justified." A collective murmur spread through the chamber, a mixture of shock and quiet awe. Some of the older judges clenched their jaws, still reluctant to admit it fully, but the facts were undeniable. Tradition could not outweigh evidence. Courage, intelligence, and loyalty had prevailed. Alara felt a wave of relief and pride. She had anticipated resistance, but she had not doubted the truth of her choice. Ethan's calm gaze met hers, and in that moment no words were necessary. The verdict was not only a personal victory, it was a statement that humanity could no longer be dismissed. The head judge continued, addressing the entire council. "Furthermore, the tribunal recognizes that humans, long underestimated, possess skills and qualities that can benefit the Empire. The prejudices that once limited our interactions with this species are no longer sufficient to ignore their contributions. Moving forward, the High Council will consider humans as capable allies, deserving of respect and recognition. The chamber erupted, not in noise, but in a wave of realization. The Empire had witnessed something extraordinary. A species once dismissed as fragile had shown that courage, intelligence, and loyalty were not defined by lifespan or biology. Humanity had proven its worth not through force alone, but through ingenuity, composure, and integrity. Thurin's guards led him away, his eyes dark with anger and disbelief. His plot had failed utterly, and the consequences of his actions were now under scrutiny. Even his most loyal allies had turned, swayed by the undeniable effectiveness and bravery of the human standing beside the princess. Alara stepped forward, her voice ringing clearly across the chamber. The tribunal's decision honors not only my choice but the values we hold dear. Courage, intelligence, loyalty, and action define worth. Let this be a precedent. Prejudice has no place where truth and deeds prevail. The Empire's strength lies in recognizing potential wherever it may exist. Ethan's quiet voice followed, measured but firm. We have faced impossible odds, and yet here we stand. Humans are not defined by weakness, and the Empire is stronger when it acknowledges that strength. I do not ask for gratitude. I ask only that actions be judged fairly and courage be recognized wherever it is found. For a moment the chamber was still. Then, slowly, one of the younger judges nodded, followed by another and another. A quiet applause of approval rippled through the audience. The tide had turned. Humanity had earned recognition, not through charm or ceremony, but through courage, intelligence, and steadfastness. Alara felt a deep pride swell within her. She had made her choice not out of defiance, but out of recognition of what she saw in Ethan. And now the Empire itself would see it. The galaxy was vast, but humans had proven they could hold their own among the stars. The king, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. His voice was strong, steady, and deliberate. Princess Alara, your courage and wisdom are commendable. You have chosen well. And you, human, have proven that you are more than we believed possible. The Empire recognizes your contribution and your value. From this day forward, humans will be seen not as outsiders, but as allies of the Velari. Let this be remembered. The chamber was silent for a heartbeat, then a wave of approval followed. Alara turned to Ethan, her eyes bright. We did it, she whispered, barely able to contain her joy. Ethan shook his head with a small, calm smile. We showed them what humans are capable of, that's the victory. Alara nodded. Yes, but it's more than that. We changed minds, hearts, and traditions. That is the true power of courage and action. Outside the chamber, the stars gleamed as if acknowledging the moment. News of the tribunal's verdict would spread across the Empire and beyond. Humans would be recognized as capable, intelligent, and courageous. The galaxy was watching, and the perception of humanity was shifting forever. For Alara and Ethan, the victory was personal and profound. The challenge had been immense, the risk unparalleled, yet their courage and determination had prevailed. The Empire had learned a truth that could not be denied. Strength is not measured by biology alone, and the value of a species is defined by actions, not assumptions. Thurin, meanwhile, faced his own reckoning. His plans had failed, his influence shattered, and the Empire had seen through his manipulation. He had underestimated a human and underestimated the princess who believed in one. His fall was swift, a cautionary tale of arrogance and prejudice. Alara and Ethan stood on the observation deck later that night, looking out at the infinite expanse of stars. The royal station, once tense with suspicion and hostility, now felt alive with cautious optimism. The Empire had faced a challenge, and humanity had risen to meet it. This is just the beginning, Ethan said, his voice calm as ever. There will be more trials, more challenges, but now they cannot deny what humans are capable of. Alara smiled, her hand brushing against his. And we face them together. The Empire has learned a lesson, but we will continue to show them what courage, intelligence, and loyalty mean in action. The stars shimmered endlessly, silent witnesses to the triumph of the human spirit. Humanity had proven itself not through force alone, not through fear or power, but through ingenuity, courage, and unwavering determination. And as Alara and Ethan stood side by side, the galaxy itself seemed to pause, acknowledging that the future had changed. Humanity had a place among the stars, not as an afterthought, but as a species capable of shaping destiny. The tribunal was over. The conspiracy had been thwarted. the Empire recognized the worth of humanity. And the princess, chosen by a human, had ensured that courage, loyalty, and intelligence would never again be measured by tradition alone. Together, they looked outward into the galaxy, ready for the challenges and opportunities to come. For the first time, they knew that the impossible was within reach, and that humanity, when underestimated, could rise to greatness among the stars. The future was theirs to shape.